Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to AI Curate Webinar Specials, the CXO series. Today's topic is innovation at scale for competitive advantage and differentiation, strategic perspectives. And to discuss on this, joining us today is Rajeshri Rao, Head of Partnerships and Ecosystem, APAC for R2 Data Labs at Rolls-Royce. Samir Dhanrajani, CEO and co-founder at AI Curate Advisory and Consulting, who would be moderator of this session. Let's all be on mute throughout the session for better webinar experience. By the way, please use the chat window for sharing your thoughts and to conversate with us and all participants to make the session interactive. You may also use this chat window for sharing your questions for Q&A. We are recording this webinar and the recorded webinar will be available on our website www.aicurate.ai. Let me introduce today's guest. Shri is a global acclaimed industry thought leader, visionary advisor, and mentor in next-gen technologies. Shri, working for 20 years in the corporates across regions, brings with her the diverse industry experience of working with IBM, Intel, and SAP, leading and influencing the technology adoption within Singapore government and public sector for building the smart city and smart nation initiatives in the APAC region. In her current role as the Head of Partnerships and Ecosystem, APAC for R2 Data Labs at Rolls-Royce, Shri has established strong partnerships across industry players, academia, corporates, governments, industry bodies, incubators, accelerators, and VCs. Her focus is to optimize, vitalize, and augment existing cutting-edge technology capabilities to innovate with a diverse ecosystem, initiatives of co-creation, co-innovation, and co-funding engagement models for efficiently addressing the problems instead of reinventing the wheel. She is the catalyst within the business for shaping the future through data-led innovation. She leads the R2 Data Labs to be the pioneers in powering the ecosystem capabilities for leading ahead of the competition. Established ecosystem team as the trusted business advisors both to the internal and external business stakeholders globally, and has been known as the pioneers in the open innovation partnership model. Shri champions the strategy which she developed called Partnership Innovation Model, which is based on the open innovation framework to drive the innovation within Rolls-Royce. Shri has been recognized by Thinkers 360 as one of the top 50 global thought leaders and influencers in emerging technologies. Shri also has been recognized as one of the top 100 women B2B global thought leaders to follow in 2020. Shri, pleasure to have you in our webinar specials. Thanks for agreeing to come on this platform today. Let me now hand over the session to Samir. Samir, over to you.
Thanks, NK, for the introductions, and pleasure to have you, Shri. I'm sure with your prolific experience, our global participants will benefit a lot. And topic per se is very interesting, and you've been into this space for quite some time. And what I want to start in terms of get the ball rolling is about something which we often hesitate to discuss, but I really want to bring this particular aspect more like a question, a bit provocative, but I think this is the stage, this is a time where I think I should be going ahead and asking this. There is a big battle going on in terms of traditional companies globally versus what I call new age digital companies. If you look at the premise of the digital companies, it's all been a very strategic aspect of fueling innovation from the word go versus traditional organizations where the whole fundamental aspect of innovation is still a boardroom discussion, but with inertia, but with a lot of ifs and buts, and there is a lot of unknown when it comes to execution. The gap seemingly seems to be significant in terms of traditional companies failing to catch up on the innovation bandwagon. In your views, and I know you've worked extensively across geographies, enterprises, across roles, in terms of really kind of understanding what and how innovation can actually be a catalyst and a game changer. Let's hear your views on this particular thing, traditional enterprises versus new age enterprises, and what traditional enterprises should be doing on the innovation side to turbocharge themselves.
Samir, thank you so much for having me today and giving me an opportunity to express my learnings, my journey through innovation in the last 20 years, and share what I believe and how the future and the organizations should adopt innovation itself. And what is the primarily today the gaps that is existing and how they all can play a part to transform the way we are working today and evolve to innovating in real time. Thank you all. Thank you for joining the session and taking time out. I really appreciate and thank you, Samir, for the opportunity. Thank you, NK, for the wonderful introduction. That's a lot. So coming back to your question first, I've been in the innovation journey right beginning. I started my career with IBM and I've been with IBM for the longest time, for 13 and a half years. I've seen the way the organization has evolved through their innovation. Now, if you take an organization like IBM, they have a huge R&D effort itself, and they're constantly innovating. Because I was, as part of my one of the executive fast track learning, I was working as a program manager for IBM's Fellows Council at the IBM Academy of Technology. And that year, there's a very, very specific instance I'm quoting, just to begin with, but I will then answer all your questions that you've asked. A very specific instance was that it was in the year 2008 when there was a huge recession due to the economic downturn that happened in 2008, and when Wall Street completely crashed. We, as part of that time in IBM, they were supposed to organize a IBM Academy annual general meeting. It's a conference which is supposed to be organized in Florida. It never happened. We couldn't do it because when the world is suffering, you can't then go and enjoy an event, a massive event, and spending money. We innovated at that time. There was this technology called Second Life, and we all put together this very interesting virtual conference. So, Samir, it is amazing because at that time, back in 2008, this was the first virtual conference. The annual general meeting happened on Second Life. Literally, like, you have an avatar, you create your the image, you select how you want to look, you have this thing, and you go sit like in the conference like an audience, and then you participate. And this was phenomenal learning as to how we innovate. So yes, there is the if you take the traditional organization at a corporate level, I'm going to talk at a corporate level. They have at that time there was a bandwidth of the technology, the capabilities, the resources, plus the funding as well to put together something like this. But yes, we began at that. Whether you call it innovation, yes, it was something out of the box thinking. It was an idea that made its way out. But if you take today, we did what it was in 2008. Today we are doing this webinar. There are a lot more tools available. At that time, we didn't have this luxury. I still remember we were using this webcam. For the video thing, you just buy an external device, the webcam, and attach to your computer, and that's how this video would happen. But the whole infrastructure was hosted on a platform, on a cloud, on a server, and we would run this thing, and we would get everybody to send the link, and they would install that whole,
And we recall tweaking that webcam every now and then just to get the angle right.
So it began at that time. But yes, it is a transformation. But the one aspect which I've experienced over the last 20 years is innovation is a very abused terminology. Because yes, everybody says I innovate, but what is innovation? You need to first answer this question to yourself. What is innovation? In my perspective, innovation is something, and somebody who innovates or somebody who comes up with an innovative idea is the number one thing that checks him is he's a visionary. He or she is a visionary, or even the organization, he, she, or the organization is a visionary. That's number one. Second is one who can think beyond their own lifespan and who can give the world, which the world has never ever imagined or can even think about it. That is the characteristic of an innovator or an innovation, or even in terms of the organization. The third important thing is the one who can focus on quality and not quantity. It is not, innovation isn't equal to dollars. I need to profit, I need to make so much money. No, it's not that. And here I would definitely love to give an example of Steve Jobs, which I personally look at my ideal, because Steve Jobs didn't start off thinking that I want to make money. He just converted an idea. He was passionate about something. He took that and he said he want to create the most perfect product. Today, if not for Steve Jobs, I and you will not have the luxury of the smartphone, WhatsApp calling, you name it. He gave the world the smartphone. That is making a difference to this entire, humankind. And innovation has to be inclusive, where I'm not just looking at my own profit mongering, right? I'm not or profiteering. I'm not looking at that, but I'm looking at how can whatever I innovate benefit the humankind, benefit this world around me. So that is the most important aspect of first understanding what is that I want to innovate. And the next aspect that you touched upon, how do these traditional organizations today evolve and what are they doing? See, I will really like to quote a very interesting example, but I don't want to name the organization. See, there are a lot of organizations who have their marquee product, or you want to say their bread and butter or their secret recipe. That is what they've developed, and today they are the pioneers, or they are the leading into that. They have a huge market because of that recipe and that marquee product that they have. Now, I have to keep to what is happening in the world. I want to adapt myself to how the world is evolving, how everybody is doing things. But that doesn't mean that I stop innovating. Or I can say that I don't want to adapt to what is happening. I will only stick like this. It's never going to happen. So here I always say innovation doesn't mean you have to replace the whole thing. It's about retrofitting. It is about being interoperable, where today we are evolving in a technology. Today, artificial intelligence is definitely going to be the technology that's going to get advanced even beyond what we have imagined. It is going to. Data is like everything is going to be data driven. Now, if I don't not combine the technology along with my domain, then I'm going to get stagnated. So I need to merge these two. And then it has about interoperable and retrofit. I don't have to remove anything and throw it out. I just need to get adapted. I have to become adaptable. Like today,
So, if I may chime in, it's a
yes.
brilliant rendition what you provided about innovation attributes, and I will take retrofitting and interoperable aspect on one fold that traditional companies usually think that they have to kind of really deconstruct everything, kind of really collapse everything, and then innovation can happen. Do you support that viewpoint, or you believe within the construct how they operate, innovation can come in?
I don't support that. That's the whole point of talking about it has to be retrofitting. It has to be restructuring. And today, that is what I would love to champion. We have to be able to innovate and make the reason why I'm talking interoperable is any technology that anybody is developing, they need to ensure that that technology is interoperable with other platforms, other software, other products. Otherwise, then whatever you're developing to me is very limited. As a startup, they can develop, oh, it's great. Today I have a market. Oh, fine, fantastic. I'm going to sell. I need PO. I'm going to grow. Then, boom, one day. That's it. They're lost because the world has gone beyond that. So it's about you have to always think 50 years, 100 years from now. How do you look at the world evolving? You need to think into the three. You have to give, you need to think ahead of the game. That's what I said. You have to think beyond your lifespan and then innovate, and also ensure you're taking a 360-degree view of what is it am I innovating? Why am I innovating? And how do I do it? And who am I innovating it for? Is it all about I'm going to wanting to make? Yes, we have to make our bread and butter, I'm not saying, but innovation is a different paradigm altogether, and that is something people need to understand. You cannot compare innovation to saying it's my bread and butter, I want to make money day one. It doesn't work.
So if we take a point, and I see a lot of these aspects what you have kind of discussed in the very first go, and I want to take and peel one by one in terms of taking your opinion. One of the thing over there as part of innovation, which you rightly touched upon, is let's look at retrofitting, let's look at interoperable kind of aspect. Now, the underpinning of as a kind of a, let's say, enterprise in terms of how they manage their business is customer. And customer experience has gone for a big kind of, I would say, unraveling in the last few years. I mean, you kind of the way we could today stream, the way we kind of transact, the way we kind of, let's say, experience products online is very, very different. Now, innovation is a bedrock over there. It's a kind of a completely a foundational layer. What do you think from a customer experience side? Some of these levers of innovation can be done to enhance, because what we see is what we see today, but in the time to come there'll be a very different, like you mentioned as a part of your earlier narrative about this whole COVID situation giving a new rise in terms of innovation. So from a customer experience innovation point of view, what do you think can be done, what's happening, and would be happy to kind of have your some of the anecdotes also coming in, please.
Okay, that's an amazing question again. And if I should take from a customer point of view, the first thing that I will always say is you have to have, yeah, experience is one aspect, okay, but innovation have to be inclusive. It cannot be exclusive. Everyone in this world have to be included in that innovation. I cannot say innovation means it's only a one segment where it's a rich class or it's like a educated class or it is somebody with a who's mobile or those kind of things. No, innovation also needs to means I have to ensure that everybody can be included in that. That is important. And again, an example could be if you take even Steve Jobs, the thing that the other aspect is scalable. Whatever he did was scaled phenomenally. And today people used that to come up with products. Say I would take Xiaomi or anybody else came up with a smartphone which was for Indian market at a low cost, which means affordable by everybody. Affordability came into a factor where it's not like only a super rich class can buy. iPhone is not affordable by everybody, but today's smartphone is whatever it is, right? Somebody used the same technology or prototype, and then they came up with a cost effective phones where today everybody has a smartphone. If you take 95% of India today has a phone. I've experienced personally, I see a beggar not having food, but he has a phone. And that's amazing. That's how advanced we are evolving in. So customer experience is one aspect is inclusive, and the next aspect is it has to be very simple to use things. It shouldn't be complicated. And also it doesn't mean that I have overheads if I need to buy something. It is duplicating and something, or it is losing my privacy or something. I'll give a very simple example. When we started the IoT in Singapore, the Smart Nation initiatives, one of the very interesting thing was smart buildings, smart homes. Smart homes was a very fad word. IoT was a fad word. And for me, when I was working with the government, the industry bodies in Singapore, one thing that was missing is there was no standardization of protocol happened. So every product had only three protocols. They would have their own, whether it was Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or something else, right? But there was no standardization of protocol. So everybody they came up with that idea because they want to sell. What they're not understanding is innovation is initially not about selling. You have to come together for a common goal. To make a city smart or to make a home smart, it takes much beyond that. It's not about coming up, oh, I want to get my pound of flesh. It doesn't work like that. And obviously, me being just a small fry in the whole industry, obviously my voice was not heard, and that is when I took to writing. But someday people might even understand, because that was a ground reality, and I want to voice this out.
So it's a great point what you touched upon. I don't want to take one piece over there is, and you got to support whether it's true from an innovation perspective or not, which is what we call it an aspect where anything in terms of a category defining becomes innovation. Is that true, Shri?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again, Samir?
Anything in terms of a category defining, you mentioned about Xiaomi or you mentioned about Apple, because it's a new segment and often it's I would say, a viewpoint that anything, if we create a new category, becomes innovation. Do you find this, or rather support this statement, or this is a very different policy altogether?
Okay, there are four boxes of innovation. One is radical innovation, which is inside out. So I'm creating something, which is what Apple did, and I'm giving to the world, which the world never know they wanted, first of all. We were not using Nokia phones. We didn't know what smartphone meant also. So they created something that I don't know I need this. But when I got it, I felt, wow, this is effective. It's today in this situation, I can talk to anybody, FaceTime, like, look, I'm not able to visit my parents, but at least I can do a video calling and see their face. So that was disruption that they did. But that was an inside out radical innovation. Then there is something called disruptive innovation, which is outside in. And if you look at companies like Airbnb, Uber, or in Singapore, GrabCab, similar to Uber, they're disrupted by coming something from outside in. because
Got
the
it.
taxi concept was fell apart sort of. The privatization, I mean, what they came up with saying it's an app based where you just could share the ride, it was cost effective, so transportation became a next paradigm again, a new level it went into. And if you look at the incremental innovation is what every organization is still working on, like doing small incremental enhancements to what they are developing. And if you look at sustain, there's another box which is called sustaining innovation, and that is adaptation of you have both radical and disruption into that. So this is the way it is done. But what is more important is I'll touch upon this example about the smart homes, right? You
Sure.
take smart homes as like, why do I need to change to LED? Okay, LED bulbs, okay, efficient and all that, I understand. But I want to have an app. I'm going to install a gateway. I'm doing different things, smart home integration. But one of the most important aspects of that is I'm opening myself to my data security and privacy. Why do I
Hmm.
want to open that? And why should a smart home cost me a bomb in the first place? I'm very comfortable with my basic lock and key. It's more efficient for me. Why do I need
Hmm.
to force myself into adapting a technology that's not it's going to make my life even more complicated?
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the question of innovation has to be really thought through. Why am I doing this, or why am I offering this? Yeah, it's fine. Okay, when I come in my smart thing, okay, I can turn it on and all. I don't think I think it's much efficient when I even turn on which light I want as and when I get into the room.
Hmm.
So is it really important? But I'm opening up for a security threat. Say a security breach can happen. Somebody could even without today having a smart home, we have so many security and privacy issues. Cyber threats are always there.
True, true. No, I think what you touched upon is, I think, quite good to cogitate and mull over that. Look, just by building some functionalities, features, it cannot be construed as an innovation breakthrough. And good, you gave a viewpoint about these four different types of innovation for our participants to know that in terms of where they are stacked, in terms of what each one of these players are doing in their respective space. One of the example I want to take and would really love your views on this is Tesla. I think when we talk about today innovation, as you mentioned about Apple, Tesla comes to the mind foremost. What is this guy up to? What is he doing in terms of innovation, which is just so, I mean, kind of, let's say, uh, crazy in terms of the kind of buoyancy he creates in the market, and he runs his entire organization by tweets. But what's your view about Tesla from an innovation viewpoint,
Thank you. I
actually?
was somewhere I was definitely going to bring Elon Musk. Today, the only person who's innovating, if I really must say, in this world is Elon Musk. The man has not stopped. He's a visionary, definitely. He fits in
Mhm.
all the parameters that I have defined as who is an innovator or which organization is innovating. Today, if you look at, I wrote about him like a few days ago. It's there on my blog. I called it driving innovation in radical times. Even when the situation everybody is afraid and what's going to happen, we're all afraid. The one who can innovate is he's not afraid about what's going to happen. It's okay, it's a phase. This is a learning for us. A few years down the line, it would have taught us a lot of things, and we would even we would have come out of it and would have moved into becoming something different. And this is an opportunity for us to recheck our path and probably just realign what we might not have been doing right. And to me, I see this as opportunity. Yes, there is always a collateral damage in everything. I'm not saying this is not going to have a collateral damage. There is a collateral damage, but I'm sure that everything happens for something bright, a better future. That's what
Hmm.
I believe. So today, if you take Elon Musk, he already in the last 3 months he's done what is called he tested he sent they tested using the reusable satellite. They sent two people from NASA and into the International Space Station. That is
Right.
a breakthrough. And the first collaboration, a private organization has done this. That is phenomenal breakthrough. The number two is he's already developed a battery for his cars, which is called a million-mile battery, where as you run the car, whatever the component, I'm not an engineering background or a science background, but I understand technology extremely well, how it works. So if you want, you can go and read through in detail how he's done this. So he's as you keep driving, the battery on its own gets charged, whatever the process he does done, and that is going to come into implementation soon. That's a million
Hmm.
mile battery. And if you take the next thing is, again, this is definitely a huge breakthrough, is Starlink company is working on giving internet from space, which is they are sending satellites. So they already have an approval to send 46,000 plus satellites on into the orbit, and which is going to cover, and it is going to have, they are going to be able to provide internet from the space, which means even a rural area will have uninterrupted internet. And for the urban area, it is going to be like the streaming is going to be phenomenal. This is not the streaming today we are looking at. It's going to be phenomenal. And his developers have already tested the gaming, how well they can, you do the gaming and also live streaming. So this is what the man has been doing. He's not stopped just because we are going through some crisis right now. We need to, that is the strength of a real visionary. That's the strength of a man who can transform something in this world and who can create some disruptions.
Awesome, awesome. No, I think the examples and some of these absolutely brilliant illustrations what you gave really creates one aspect that, look, there is no stopping, as you rightly said, in terms of innovation. And innovation per se create new categories and monetization in itself. Related to that, Sri, I have one question, and this is something which I say it's a bit of dichotomy in terms of the question. You mentioned in the earlier narrative about do not worry about the growth and scale, just worry about the vision, worry about how the innovation has to become a larger, broad agenda within the CXO's boardroom. But there is also a fact today, companies, enterprises today are struggling on quarter to quarter kind of, let's say, growth. Some of them are facing anemic growth. Automobile companies, you take that, even a lot of these, I would say, CPG retail companies kind of a thing. Now, over there, with this predicament of anemic growth, scale not happening, and innovation needs to come in. And you've worked in those scenarios, situation, consulted, also worked with the startups kind of a thing. What's your kind of a, let's say, overarching view in terms of how to manage this particular situation?
Thank you again. You made me to you touched upon the point that I really want to champion, which I champion. And today, that's
Sure.
what I keep saying. Innovation has to be done based on the open innovation framework, which is partnership model. You and I alone cannot innovate. See, because today it also involves huge capex. How do we bring in the larger ecosystem so that you can co-create and co-innovate? Today we have to leverage what is already there in the market. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. This is what I keep telling. You don't have to do anything from scratch. Identify who's doing what is it you want to develop. Yes, because we also have to work, we have to get some business, because if you don't get dollars, how are you going to pay your employees? I completely understand that bit, and that is why I say you don't have to have capital intensive innovation. The companies like, I'll just quote G has an in-house innovation hub, but that is because they have a capital that is they have invested into their own innovation hub, but not everybody has the luxury to do that. IBM used to also has a budget. They would definitely invest in their R&D effort, but not again every organization can have that luxury today. Today we are all running a big challenge and to coming back on track, but this is giving a time for us to rethink. How do we collaborate? How do we build those partnerships? Bring everybody, so which means win-win for all of them. Everybody gets a share of pie. It's not I'm alone sitting and having that pie. I can share it with the thing, come with something fantastic which I wouldn't have otherwise. We need to leverage everybody's strength in innovating.
So then I want to just relate to what you're currently championing and spearheading at Rolls-Royce. Wonderful kind of initiative, what you're leading. But if I look from my own lens, there is no playbook. There are no external references, and there is no kind of a template or a kind of a, let's say, scenario. In that mode, how have you gone ahead, build this whole innovation kind of a framework? How have you stitched alliances and partnership? And what's been your success mantra in terms of doing so? Because I'm trying to just squeeze some learnings from your kind of experience.
Samir, there is never a time when you can go and you can do it traditionally. At least I wouldn't follow the traditional ways, right? Somebody has to do it. I'm going to just put together. I went and first is develop the strategy. See, there are innovation imperatives, and first is you need to have a very clear strategy. How, what, when, why, what is the method. And it has to be in such a way that anybody can take and customize it and replicate it or implement it. It cannot be that, oh, I don't have this piece, then I can't work. No. And that is what I've developed. Whether Rajshri is there or not in any organization, that doesn't matter. I've developed something which anybody can take it and run, but they just need to know how to run that. That's all it requires. It requires an appetite and passion to go and convince somebody else why you need to partner with me, what is it in for you, and how we could collaborate. And even in the current scenario, if you take a, if I may say this, you know, we can always wait for the right day. There is no right day. It is now. You got to just do it. Don't bother about how things are going to happen. But if you don't try or you don't go and do it, and then how are we going to tell the world how this is going to work? There are never going to be references. I'm going to build that reference. So it's
So tell us,
not
when
walking
you
the path,
started,
just taking
how
the
did
risk
you
that
go about
not
building it
everybody
up?
is taken. Sorry.
No, sorry to chime in, but I'm saying, tell us how you went about building this thing up.
Okay.
And we would also like to hear for the audience and participants' sake the challenges you faced.
Oh, okay. I will definitely touch upon. So what I
Sure.
did is I had a very clear idea as to I want to develop the strategy based on open innovation framework. That was very clear. There were no two ways about it. And since in Singapore itself, I have last 10 years developed the startup ecosystem. So I know the in and out of how this whole thing work. And in the last few years, there's a huge fad about incubators and accelerators. All these middlemen trying to say, I will create a program. You recruit cohorts after cohorts after cohorts. Oh my God. And I was like, I was completely, I'm not saying against, I wouldn't word the word strong, but I'm not in for it. I don't
Mhm.
believe in it, to be very honest. It is not about having like cohorts and cohorts and cohorts. You need to understand who you want, what solutions are there. If you take today, 50 more than 50% of startups are not even existing. Why? Because it's very simple. It's like, okay, it was a boom. That boom is completely gone now. And I know there are organizations who are now restructuring. There's a huge reorg happening. You need, that's why I keep telling, even all the, when I advise the startup, I'll say, you be very clear as to why you're doing what you're doing. Don't simply go do something because it's become a fad. Oh, I want a startup. I want to be my CEO. I'm getting this funding. But what are you using it for? How is it helping the world? How is it helping anybody? Today, when the whole world is at a standstill, it's challenged everybody. Your money cannot get you, your money power cannot buy you a vaccine. We are at that stage of life, and this is a very important aspect, and you need to even rethink about it. So the way I went about doing is I have was very clear, firm. The strategy is open innovation framework. I'm not going to duplicate effort. It is the partnership innovation model. I went and dirtied my hands, understood the market, started developing this, talked to every partner myself, learning from the scratch who I want to, what I want to. Even if I'm looking at a startup, I will personally evaluate who they are, what are they doing, why they are doing. I will have a million questions before I kind of say yes. So to that
So,
level.
no, it's a very wonderful thing what you said about this whole startup ecosystem. And the reason I chimed in, which I want you to kind of now flesh it out, you rightly said startups today, specifically Sri, and I'm talking about from India perspective, have an issue in terms of existence, a big issue. The reason, of course, because this whole COVID situation have opened up what are the real ones and who are the fake or the not so real ones. In that mode of startups, and I'm talking about the ones which are fighting this battle, specifically for them, it's been a innovation aspect of functionality change, new version release, new kind of a, let's say, platform. Where are they going wrong? And I want an opinion which is coming from you, because it's like Shree's opinion, because you not only kind of worked with many of them, you've also seen what's under the hood for them. Let us know your views, please.
Okay, the fundamental is that I, as an organization, need to know who am I innovating. I will again go back to the foundation itself. Why am I innovating? What am I doing? It is not about a pitch to the VC. What startups always believe is about getting funding. They always build on the pitch to the VC. And to me, I have sat in so many VC pitches. I've been with PwC, and I've attended few when McKinsey was going to fund. I mean, it is like somebody just invites some bunch of people and they come up with, oh, this is good, that is good, oh, this is in the social responsibility space, or this is helping, I don't know, or whatever, social entrepreneurship, and so many people. And I was like, there's not one quality here. India has 42,000 startup ecosystem overall. Okay, out of it 7,200 are deep tech startups who are based 25% of them are based in Bangalore. Of that, if you really ask me, I want only creme de la creme, and the creme de la creme are not more than 300 across verticals, or maybe, okay, you even take 500, it's not more than that. If there are so many good startups, why don't we have so many unicorns coming out of India? We don't have. It's the same story with
If you have to sift or you have to filter, what attributes, what kind of strategic levers you look in a startup, which you know that they have in it to not only do this innovation, but to also scale it to the next level?
the first important aspect, attitude. I
Mhm.
quote, talking to a corporate as a startup, I'm saying, if I were a startup, I will first sell what is that I can offer. I'm not going to go and ask for PO. And trust me, when every time a startup comes and says, okay, we've done this, oh, this PO says, oh, this is what you've done, and here I need my PO. Are you kidding me? The whole aspect is you need to be focused in making whatever you're doing successful. You don't look at the end result. The moment somebody comes and tell the first thing that they talk, I will straight away reject them, because that is not the attitude you carry as a startup. To me, I don't even want to work with them. That's the
So,
first important. Second is they need to come well prepared in understanding who they are going to work for, what is that they're going to work for, the market. They need to do a lot of research. The amount of effort put in is, I would give minus.
attitude, the whole understanding of market, what else?
And you need to be good in, okay, yes, you've developed something. It's not about just selling. Don't come with a selling mindset. Come with selling how you can make a difference by what you're bringing in. Your product, your work, or everything has to speak for itself. And this is missing. And I will tell you, out of this entire 100%, maximum 2% of people are at that attitude today. And that is why I will quote Elon Musk. You need to be working like an Elon Musk.
Got it. Got it. No, I think it's hard hitting, but it's good because at some level, herd mentalities in startup needs to be curtailed, needs to be absolutely what I call stopped, because otherwise it will just lead to more carnage in the startup market, nothing else. Because I think if there is a kind of a leader, or let's create a second or the third in the series, doesn't work. You're right, absolutely over there. Sri, one shift of the gears I want to take is now country specific. You worked in different geographies all across. Coming back to our own backyard, India, Skill India, Make in India, Digital India, we've launched multiple initiatives. And the whole aspect of many of these initiatives is to proliferate startups in India. And within that whole startup ecosystem, it's also about government supporting. Now, the fact over there is that if we really look from a vantage point of the government is they're doing their bit. Some of the policy initiatives are good. Of course, a lot can be done. But the key aspect over there is what happens to their own departments, their own kind of, let's say, government-run enterprises, which are reeking of inadequate innovation, the same file moves, the same kind of a pendency of kind of chasing lawyers, the same kind of, let's say, aspect of standing in queues for the hospitals. Why can't innovation over there be created in a much bigger fashion? And I go to the extent of even asking you, does India need a chief, or rather a ministry of innovation?
Very interesting question. And I think my answer will be definitely yes, but we don't need too many departments, again, overheads added. It's about, yes, we need some young brain who can take up and transform this. In fact, when the Arogya Setu app came up, I have come up with a proposal on developing the National Health Registry for India. It's a proposal that I sent to Narendra Modi. You can take a look at it. And today I'm trying. I've sent it to different people, but obviously there's no response to that. But someday I believe. See, it's my effort. Like I keep saying, if you do not put in effort, you can't wait for the end result that they have to respond. It's my effort to keep trying. I'm giving this proposal. I know what can be done, and India can become at a global level as we can set an example. And this whole national health registry is talking about how all the health related can be under one app. It's a platform, and you can avail. And with India with 1.35 billion population, we do need something like this, so that even in the future any such crisis come up, we will be in a better position to handle and manage it. And not just that, it can create more jobs. And I will always give it to India because our healthcare system, our doctors have more brain than anybody else in the world. I can say that much because with my own experience and having experienced the medical system abroad, I would always, I'm more Indian. I would prefer going into India and getting my test done rather than getting it anywhere else in the world.
Wonderful. One question I want to take, which is also a question which has come from the participants, Shri, an interesting question. From an aspect of breeding innovation from a grassroots level, schools, colleges, academic institutions, I think we are far away over there. And the basic premise of how the whole innovation journey is all about seems to be missing. In your view, what should be done at a grassroots? When we talk about grassroots, we are talking about school or academic institution level to prop up innovation as maybe a curriculum or as a part of the syllabus.
We need to stop the rote learning. I've written articles on what is the future of education system look like. That I've already written. You can just take a look at it. And I believe education is going to be education as a service model in the future, where I want to be learning both. I will have a model where I will be learning more from a physical training and also virtual. It could be a combined effect. Education system will transform. Like they will become like the Googles and Microsoft, there will become educational institutes like that who will provide a customized service based on what I want to learn. We don't have to follow rote learning anymore. And this will evolve when that this is a vision in the next 50 years and 100 years. But somebody has to look into it. Today we are all trying to, we are learning 200 years old subjects. Come on, it doesn't matter. IBM and everybody today are not hiring engineers. They are not hiring graduate based on their master degrees or PhD degrees. They are hiring based on skills that somebody can bring in. It is not about education is not anymore, like I keep saying, learning math, science, English, whatever, right? It's about talent. It's about skill. It's about what you can bring and attitude. It's a culture that you have to inculcate now. You got to be a go-getter. You don't have to fear anything. You should be able to go try. Why do you need to fear failure in the first place? There's nothing to fail. There's
How does one
but even
inculcate these things?
if you don't fail, you don't know
Yeah.
what to succeed. It is all about.
How does one inculcate in the students or this young population about these skills? Because at the end of the day, this doesn't come in from, I would say, the textbooks.
No.
In our own kind of an age, we never knew about what entrepreneurship is all about. But today, kids know that the first thing they may have to do, many of them, is to get their own startup or venture created. So, to your point, and this is a question, in fact, how does these skills then comes into as part of their own kind of inculcation?
See, interesting. I've been talking to different colleges, and one of the things that I keep championing is don't get carried away saying, I want to have a startup. Startup is not the answer. First, ask yourself, what is that you are very good at? What is your passion? See, everybody is made of something that they are very good, one unique talent, okay, God-given talent. I am known for something this. I have this as Rajashri cannot be taken away by anybody else. And you need to build on that strength. It is not about saying, oh, my friend did it or my somebody did it. Are you really game for startup? You need to put in 20 hours of your effort. You can't even sleep. How capable are you? Are you so good at it to give that kind of commitment? Microsoft didn't come Microsoft if not for day and night of what Bill Gates has done. Apple did not become Apple without the kind of effort that has. The backbone of that Apple is today Steve Jobs, not anybody else. Today, Apple is not innovating. They're only just enhancing the existing products and doing something. But the one who gave Apple the product was Steve Jobs. He's the backbone of that. So some Microsoft backbone is Bill Gates. Warren Buffett, the man behind his brains, how did he go through? They all put that effort. It's not being smarter, it's about being more disciplined. And today you see everybody, especially the millennials, lack discipline like terrible. And these are the things they have to bring it up. So these are the things that you need to talk to them, explain to them. I have learned it the hard way. I didn't grow up learning all this. I never even knew in my life I would get here someday in my life. And I will tell you today, whatever I'm speaking and I'm sitting this place today, I will always credit it back to my preceptor. He's my spiritual master who drives me up the wall even today. He's like, you need to study. I might, whatever my age might be, age is just a number. Even today, I feel I'm still in college. I'm 16 years old, sitting and studying stuff. Because if I need to tell you, I need to be well read. I need to know what I'm talking about. So you need to put your effort, do your homework very well.
Great. So one of our straight question, and I was anticipating this. What's the innovation strategy and framework at Rolls-Royce? It's a straight-jacketed one.
See, like I said, I've developed today. So I was hired last year in Rolls-Royce. So today I have developed the partnership innovation model, which is based on the open innovation framework. But as I have to be executing, we have hit a roadblock. But that doesn't stop me. But I'm trying to figure ways out to implement that or execute based on that strategy. So when I have done, probably I'll come back to you and say how I've made it happen.
Great, great. So one of the thing, and this is again a part of the question tree, what we have is today this whole aspect of innovation strategy, and you mentioned about 4 different levels of innovation, but innovation strategies somewhere need to get blend with, and you also mentioned in the earlier part of narrative, with AI. Because eventually there is a data and there is a kind of, let's say, innovation, and the decision making for the corporates becomes more amplified when innovation and data comes together. For that to happen, it needs a big change altogether from the corporates, how they understand, evangelize, internalize AI and innovation. What's your view around that in terms of AI and innovation coming together? What's the art of possible over there?
See, again, when I say AI, it's a very interesting technology. It's amazing and it has its own challenges, pros, cons, and I've written extensively about that. But that doesn't mean that the technology is bad. It's about how you leverage the technology, how you make use of it. It's an adaptation. It's a long drawn effort. It's not overnight. Things cannot happen overnight. You're looking at short term, it's never going to be. It's even if you're going to look at near term, it's never going to be. But you have to keep working on it to develop. If you take anywhere where AI has been quite advanced, and I would say it is healthcare. In healthcare, it has done a lot of things, and I've written an article exclusively on how AI is helping healthcare system amazingly. Today, if you look telemedicine, and this is possible only because I'm able to avail the facility of a medical treatment with a specialist or a surgeon sitting in some part of the world only because of this technology. But is it available at a cost that I can afford? Not yet. So it has to evolve, and for which the whole, like I always say, this can be achieved through public-private partnership. If you're taking as independent private just hospitals or healthcare system, healthcare is going to thrive. Healthcare industry is going to thrive. And healthcare, the startups in the healthcare will evolve. Not everybody, but some will definitely go well. It'll thrive. But if you have the right model, then there is a lot that can happen. And most important, it has to be cost effective and it has to be affordable. Again, it is not money making for all the profit mongerings here.
Makes sense. The other thing, and this is a question from my side, I should have asked you in the beginning, but it's pertinent given we have global participants. Now, there is often this tussle, Shri, about who owns innovation within the enterprise. I mean, first, not many organizations have chief innovation officers, as we know. Ideally, a CIO should become an innovation officer, but that's again my view, could be wrong. And then if the story is all about championing innovation across business functions within the organization, and if the chief innovation officer as a tag, title, and as a position is not there, who owns the innovation and then how it should be championed within the organization?
The innovation should be owned by every employee in the organization. The mindset is very important. For the innovation to happen, as a culture, I need to champion innovation. I need to be ready to be adaptable. I can't say I can only do it like this because we want always easy way out. We don't want to put that extra effort. We don't want to work that extra lag, extra, whatever that hard, the strenuous path. We don't want to tread that path. It has to be championed by everybody. It cannot be, oh, I'm only being paid so much, I will only work like that. No, it's a mindset, it's a culture. Everybody has to champion innovation. Innovation
So,
has to
overly,
come within
so
the
if
hand.
I put in one part, which is the right thing, what you said, so if the enterprise has to make it a rallying cry, should it be led from the board, CXOs, or you're saying -2, -3 levels? How it should be done
No,
actually?
it has to come right from the tops down. It has to be both tops down, bottoms up as well. Because most important is tops down. Because if I don't, as a leader, set an example to the world, how will anybody follow then? So I have to campaign first. It has to begin with me. So it has to be tops down.
And are you a proponent of a chief innovation officer within the organizations?
It is again, see, it's a basically an organization structure. But if you have a chief innovation officer, then you need to make it. If it's centralized, then it means it has to be integrated with the other functions, and they need to very focused looking into that. Again, it has to be a person with the right attitude, the right mindset. Otherwise, it becomes a BAU. Again, it cannot become a business as usual. Then because they then dedicatedly need to look at what is every function doing, how are they innovating, they need to be up, they need to be ahead of the game and telling every function, have you looked at this, have you looked at this. They need to then be very closely working with all of this function to make it happen.
Wonderful. One interesting question, and this is something which is kind of a question specific to banking, Sri, is our own banks, and this is more about Indian banks, have been now completely, I would say, disrupted by fintech companies. They have come in a swamp. Each and every part of a banking value chain has been disrupted by fintech companies. Question is more about, are we saying that Indian banks may not have a road ahead, or they can innovatively do something to challenge the fintech companies?
Banks, you cannot remove banks in the first place. Banks will exist, but it's about how they will have to become how they will have to also transform with the way the world is evolving. We cannot be in stone age. We have to evolve to the current. We are not saying you go and become somebody, we're not saying you become more futuristic. We're not even saying that. You have to be somewhere in the mid path, and bank will exist. And I think I've written again enough on technology with banking. I've covered a lot of topics as to how different things are happening. Yeah, today we are evolved from credit cards to we become. Trust me, moving back to India, I feel India is more advanced. I just use everything as wallet pay for me. I don't no more carry cash. I don't even want to go carry cash. We are a phenomenal country. We're so good. Even in Singapore, the wallet pay was not implemented before India. India was the first to get it. And I know somebody in one of the top banks in Singapore. The employee, the person who was developing this was an Indian. So we were talking about. So he said, "Oh, India is way ahead. We did this 2 years ago, and we're just implementing it here in like this year." So I was like amazed. I mean, we are very advanced, but that we need to bring the blend and get the middle path done.
Wonderful, wonderful. No, I think this is very pertinent in what you said. I want to take one question, which is now, even I had this question as a kind of a, let's say, just rounding up the whole thing was, if you have to create, Sri, a playbook of innovation, irrespective whether it's a startup, enterprise, or a kind of a mid-sized firm, what will be those three things which you want in that playbook to be written? Just the, and you can of course support with anecdotes or examples, but three things what you would support as part of Shri's playbook for innovation.
It's like I said, anything that it most important is strategy. The how, what, when,
That's the first one,
why.
okay?
It's strategy. Then how do you process? How do you operationalize? You need to ensure how do you operationalize it, and then what is the governance? Because governance is very important aspect, operationalization is very important aspect, and strategy, a very clear strategy is very important. All these things have to very, very well put it up. And it has to be very simple for any layman to take it and go and execute it.
That's one strategy. Okay. What's the second and third one? You're
Operation.
trying to
How
put
do
you
you
on spot.
operationalize
Operationalize. Great.
the strategy? Then next
Hmm.
is governance framework,
Hmm.
very important aspect. And
Hmm.
all these things have to be put in very simplified manner.
Hmm.
Simplification is the most important. It's not complex, look, complex diagram, complex architecture, or complex processes. No, simple.
Hmm.
Any layman should be able to understand the playbook.
Hmm. Hmm.
You
Wonderful.
don't need MBA degree to go through it.
I want to take the last one, Tree, and this is something which this participant has asked. When we look 10 years from now, future forward, 2030, what would be the status of industries who have been pioneers in innovation? What will be the new things they'll be bringing to the table 10 years from now? And it's like, it's not specific to one industry, like it's all about, okay, 10 years from now, how the status of pioneers who have fueled the innovation, and you mentioned about Apple, Tesla, 3M, other examples, what would be their future forward outlook in 2030?
Very interesting question. If you look at all of these companies, right, they're all, it's they, they're continuing to innovate. And in today, in this climatic conditions, the one company which is actually profiting is Apple. They are, and you can't stop using their products. We are so much used to it. Obviously they're going to do enhancements and a lot more and make your life easy. Yeah, that's for the betterment. But if you look at it, it's all about, all these companies will be restructuring and reconstructing. It's not about changing anything or just removing. You're only going to be adapting to the way the world will evolve. Technology advancements will skyrocket now. It is going to
Hmm.
evolve beyond your imagination. If you look at the concept of office, why do you need an office today? Are we not still working? You need office only when you want to do certain work which is required that office environment. So you can have two levels of flows where you just need a client briefing center or a lab or something like that. But you can work from home. Efficiency. Why do I need to drive 2 hours in the traffic to go to work? Why am I wasting the fuel and polluting the environment? The work from home is the new normal. It is the virtual reality. So things will get transformed in that capacity. So why do we need so many buildings? Why are we wasting? We're just destroying the environment. Why? So all these things are going to be rethought. It's going to be remodeled.
Wonderful. Sri, absorbing, fascinating, riveting, and I must say, very engaging session. First, I must admit, and this is our 40th session, it's not an easy theme actually, because it's not just building an innovation strategies going much deep. And the way you kind of very simplified in a very lucid manner built upon the whole construct in terms of what enterprises, what startup, what even nation should be doing to champion, spearhead innovation was very wonderful. The anecdotes, what you kind of got to the table about Apple, Tesla, and these are the features which you really said that, look, this should be done and this shouldn't be attempted or even done because there is a clear line in terms of innovation or no innovation. And what I call it as a part of this, what is not innovation. Brilliantly portrayed in terms of what you kind of exuded as part of your experience and a lot of that thing, what you've seen across geographies, must say, very, very, I would say, compelling sessions in terms of participants globally to really decide what now they should be doing and they should be doing on the innovation side. Thank you so much for sparing time. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Samir, and all the participants, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my experience and what I really believe. And I think if there is anything that I can contribute and be of help for anyone in the future, you can reach out to me. Very happy to be part of this journey. And I love giving back to my country. And that's when I moved back from Singapore at 10 years. I mean, after living there for 10 years, I want to give back to my country. I want to have this vision of India being that future city, it's my passion because home is where my heart is, and in India I always love India. Like in my heart, buy Indian, for Indian, whatever. We have a huge opportunity to transform and be an example at a global level. So there's a lot to do here. And Samir,
Thank
thank you
you
once
so
again for
much.
this wonderful opportunity.
Pleasure. Thanks, Shri. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.